Hey guys, Eternize here. Today we're going to take a look at how we can potentially fix a bad hardstyle kick. Let's jump straight into it. First of all, let's define what makes for a bad hardstyle kick. We're not talking about anybody's subjective opinion here. So we're not talking about if it fits your style or if you don't like the sound of any particular kick. What we're talking about is objectively how the kick is constructed. So more the technical aspects of the kick. And why this is important is that it's not only important for the kick itself, it's also very important for how it interacts with the track that you plan to use the kick in. So with a bad kick, it can be difficult or sometimes impossible to fit in a mix and reach a certain loudness standard. And that's simply because the kick is not optimized for loudness. So let's take a look at a bad kick here. So to the untrained, this may just sound like the perfect kick, right? It has a great punch, it has a great tail, it just sounds great overall. And quite frankly, even to the trained ear, nothing inherently sounds wrong about this kick. But it's when we take the kick through the analyzers that the problems start to appear. So when taking the kick through the analyzers, I see two issues here. One being that the punch obviously bleeds into the tail. And number two is that the tail itself is skewed to one of the sides, so meaning that we probably have a phase issue here. So what we'll do now is that we'll try to fix these two issues, and to make it as lifelike as possible, I'm gonna try to do it with the actual sample. Of course, this would have been much easier, and if you do your kicks yourself, this is much easier because then you can just go into the project file and fix these type of issues. Dealing with it in a sample form is much harder. So I'm gonna try to fix it like this so you can see the process of how we would do that. So the first steps I would say is to separate the punch from the tail, because again, the tail part is the issue here. There's nothing wrong with the punch. We have to separate the two so that we can work on the tail separately and leave the punch intact. So what we'll do is that we will duplicate the track. And then we'll separate the punch from the kick by simply separating them like this. So now we have a channel for each of the parts here. So one channel for the punch and one channel for the tail. So now we can process the tail separately. Now again, we had two issues here in this kick, and I want to try to resolve the simplest one first. That being that the tail was skewed to one of the sides. So again, when focusing on the tail itself, the tail is leaning towards one of the sides. So usually the fix for this is pretty easy. Usually you would just take a normal EQ and then do a low cut, and that will fix the tail, we'll get it back into place around the midline. So we can try to do that here and see how the kick reacts. And that does seem to fix like the issue of the polarity of the kick. So it tucks it in nicely around the midline, as well as actually, kind of giving it a more compressed or clipped look, which is desirable in hardstyle. So this is a fix for the tail itself. But when we're looking at the crossover between the punch and the tail itself, we still have the issue with the bleeding of the punch into the tail. So this area where the punch meets the tail is still a big issue. And the reason why it's an issue is that, again, when played by itself, this might not be an issue, but this kick is designed to be pitched, right? And when you pitch it to the tail separately to lower or higher frequencies, this wonkiness of the crossover is going to carry over to these higher pitches, and it's not going to sound good. So while we've fixed the tail itself with this, we still have the issue of the crossover between punch and tail, so this is not the complete fix for it. So the way we can go around this is that we have two options. We can completely remove or completely replace the bottom end of the tail itself, so that we completely exchange the existing bottom end with a new bottom end of our own, or maybe even from a separate kick. That's also an option. And the second option would be to see if we can use the existing tail like this, but maybe just remove some parts, like the wonky part that we don't like, and skip that part and then go straight into a later state of the kick. This will obviously be the easier option, so let's try that now. So in regards to the low end and the crossover between punch and tail, this works, right? But we've also changed the tonality and the character of the kick completely, because now we are skipping to the later part of the tail, so we don't have that initial part of the tail anymore. Having the kick like this sounds very interesting, but this might not fit with the track at all, so this is not the best option as well. We want to retain the character of the kick without changing too much, but we just want that stable low end without any bleeding of the punch into the tail. So let's go ahead and try the other option, where we completely remove the low end of the current tail and then replace it with our own. And so for that, let's create a duplicate of our tail and then add another layer of a synthesizer, which is going to create the new low end of our tail. And for this, I'm going to use Silent 1. First, let's just leave it on the saw wave, because this way we can easily find the correct pitch. And when we found the pitch, we can put it to a sine wave. So we just add that sub frequency without any of the harmonics. Next, what we want to do is that we want to remove the low end again from the tail part. And so we're going to load up another EQ. And we want to make sure that this EQ is set to linear phase mode, because otherwise we will, like we just did before with the regular EQ, we are going to mess with the phase of the kick, and that's not the goal here. The goal is to just remove the sub frequency and replace it with our own. Now what can help is that we use a separate spectrum analyzer to visually aid us to see where we need to put this low cut to really blend the two sounds together. So to the left now we have what we're cutting away from the original tail, and over here we can see with the added sub-frequency from the synth. So obviously at this point we need the synth layer or the sub-frequency layer to be a lot louder to match the loudness of the rest of the tail. So at this point we have completely removed the sub-frequency from the original tail and then replaced it with our own from Silent 1. Of course now you can see the crossover point here, and you can always go in and optimize that so it's more seamless. So now the kick flows directly into the tail without any sudden movements here. And just like that, we've completely replaced the existing low end of the original kick with a new one. And so if we take a look at the before and after, we can clearly see that the low end is much more stable. We don't have the wonkiness in the beginning from the bleeding from punch to tail. Now the tail is just one straight line and completely stable all the way throughout. This way is obviously the way that would be the best way to deal with a sampled kick like this. Again, there's different ways to go about this, but for this particular kick, this was the best way to deal with this issue. But again, if you have access and if you do create your own kicks and have access to the project file, the obvious fix would be to look at the tail separately and, fix the phasing issues there. And also go ahead and look at the transition between punch and tail and fix it that way. So let's take a listen to the before and after. So we still do have some skewing, and it could be because of the higher end or because the way that these two sounds are phasing with each other. So we could try also go ahead and deal with that by grouping the two tail sounds together. And then placing a clipper on the end and then try to clip some of the signal. So by clipping just the very top part of the kick, it does create a more coherent looking waveform, but it also does change the sound slightly of the tail. So whether you want to go ahead and do this is a matter of taste, but either of the results can be used. Alright guys, that was a quick look into how you can fix a technically bad sounding kick. Let me know if you want more of these kind of in-project style videos by leaving your comments below. Otherwise, thanks for watching and hope to see you in the next video. Bye.